Hello and welcome to your practice. Today we're going to be working on eagle pose, which is Garudasana. This is kind of a complex pose. It really can feel like you're all twisted up in knots. So I'll break it down with just the lower body and just the upper body and also some variations that you might enjoy. So to begin, we'll start in mountain pose and just take a few breaths. And then we'll start with our foundation, standing strong on the right leg. Pick up your left knee, and you might want to have a block positioned right over to the side, like I'm showing here. Lift up and internally rotate strongly so that you can place your foot on the block. This is basically your eagle leg orientation. And just stay here for a few breaths, trying not to let your hip go back into external rotation, but rather continue to firmly pull inward with your inner thigh. So your adductor muscles are really firing, you're internally rotating. Now this is a great stopping point for the lower body for many, and this is a great success to stay right here. If, however, you would like to try to move a little bit further, we're eventually going to try to tuck that foot right behind the calf. So in order to do that, you'll put a little bend in your standing leg. You can do that even if you're planning to stay on the block. Or put that little bend in and start to just wind your foot around the calf, pulling your knees towards the midline, seeing if you can stay there. And those are your eagle legs. Now, oftentimes I see people trying really hard to reach that kind of goal, that end goal they think there is, to get the foot behind the calf. And they really kind of dip the side of the pelvis down to loop and then stay in this sort of cockeyed position with the pelvis. It would be better to work on stabilizing and leveling your pelvis and staying fairly neutral there with a more moderate variation of the posture than to destabilize and tilt your pelvis in order to reach that foot behind the calf variation. So remember, there's no end goal to any of these postures, but rather just work step by step with high quality. So that's the lower legs for eagle, whether you're on the block or foot tucked behind the calf or kind of somewhere in between. All of that is acceptable. And we'll try that on the other side. So either move yourself over to the side of the block or move the block over. Stand stable on your left foot and then lift up and internally rotate. You can put your hands on your hips or bring your hands to heart center and just really try to feel your inner thigh pulling inward. The hips stay level. And if you decide you want to try softening and bending your standing leg a little, that's great. If you want to try bringing the lateral edge or the little toe edge of your foot against your standing leg, that's a wonderful option. And if you feel you might be able to wind the top of your foot around the back of your calf without getting all wonky in the pelvis, then that's a possibility too. When you feel like you're finished, come back to standing mountain. So now that we've tried out the legs, let's try out the arms and then we'll try to put it all together. So one of the things that eagle pose does is it really helps us to protract the shoulders. So this is scapula retraction, where the shoulder blades are squeezing towards each other. And this is protraction, where we're stretching the skin across the upper back. And it's very strengthening for postures like plank or even tabletop to have the ability to protract. So before we even start to wind up the arms, let's just bring the hands and the forearms together and just feel that sense of protraction in the shoulders. So you don't have to press with all your might, probably to feel this. Just a nice even press will probably start to get your shoulders firing. Then, just release your hands and your arms and drop your right arm down. Slide it up and underneath so that your elbows are stacked. And this might be where you end up. Right here, this counts as eagle arms for sure. You're getting a nice stretch across the upper back. Maybe you can start to bring the backs of the hands together, or the back of one hand against the back of the other wrist. Or possibly you can wind the arms so that the palms are together. And that's kind of the full, complete eagle arms. There's a tendency, once you get into that position or somewhere on the way, to drop the shoulders down and totally release that strong protraction. So I often give the cues to lift your fingers up just a little notch while you draw your shoulders back and down. Then bring your arms forward a centimeter or two. As you resist, pull your shoulders back. Take a breath. And then we'll release. Take a few shoulder circles in one direction. And then take a couple the other way. We'll do our eagle arms on the other side. So we'll begin with the hands and the forearms together. Take a few breaths there just to fire everything up. And then we're going to just pause it for a second. Okay. Then we're going to bring the left arm underneath. And again, this might be where your eagle arms go. Or you might bring the back of the hands together. Or you might be able to bring the palms together. Feel the fingers lifting up as your shoulders pull down. And feel your forearms moving away from your face as your shoulders pull gently back. Take a few breaths here. And when you're ready, release. So now that we've done eagle legs and eagle arms, we'll see how it feels to put everything together. Let's start by balancing on the right leg. We'll lift the left knee up, bring the foot across, either onto your block or press the little toe into the outside of the lower leg, or maybe even hook behind. Now we want to put the opposite arm on top as the leg that's on top. So since the left leg is on top this time, we'll bring the right arm up and then bring the backs of the hands together or wind the hands around. And this is eagle posture. Try to move both your elbows and your knees towards the midline so that it doesn't look like this, but rather like this. Hold for a few breaths. And when you're ready, release. You might pedal it out a little or circle your shoulders. And then when you're ready, find your balance standing on your left foot. Lift the right leg up and internally rotate. Put a little buoyancy in your standing leg and find your eagle position here. Foot on the block, just pressing inward or hooked around back. Since our right leg is on top, our left arm is going to go on top. Bring the backs of the hands together or wind around. Holding, breathing, and eventually releasing. So like I said, kind of a complex posture at first, where you feel like you're twisted up in knots. So I encourage you to work with the arms by themselves, either from mountain posture or from warrior posture, or even from a wide-legged position. You can even do eagle crunches, where you lay on the ground and take your eagle arms and eagle legs and move towards each other. Lots of ways you can practice your eagle without being in the full standing version. And then I encourage you to work just with your legs a little bit too until you feel comfortable with that. Remember, whichever leg is on top, it will be the opposite arm on top. And that's Garudasana, eagle posture. Feel free to continue your practice from here or thank your body for showing up to practice today. And I thank you for practicing with me.